What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 39 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what an unbelievable weekend of racing we have coming up for you guys this weekend. Not only do we have Churchill and the amazing Iroquois Day with 3 graded stakes on the card, the flagship show, as you see scrolling around the bottom of the screen, we'll be covering 3 grade 1s up at Woodbine. Is one of their biggest days of the entire summer, including the grade 1 Woodbine Mile. It's going to be a great show tomorrow evening, which I'll get into in a little bit. But welcome into the show, guys. Thanks so much for joining in. We have a few people coming in right now. Hopefully it continues to grow, as we all know it will. Appreciate all you guys joining in. And we are going to have the highly requested man back today. Noah Maher will be back on the show to help us out and cover the late Pick5 at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Guys, as you just, again, scrolling on the bottom of the screen, that is tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, they're moving up a little bit time-wise due to NFL football starting Thursday Night Football at about 8:20 p.m. Eastern time. The flagship show will be covering Woodbine, as I stated, with the media relations director of Churchill Downs, Darren Rogers, will be there covering and helping cover or he will be on the show for the first 20 minutes answering all of your questions. Please join up and ask him anything you want. He will be answering all of your questions for the first 20 minutes or so of the show tomorrow. Again, that is 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And after Darren Rogers is on, they will cover the late Pick5 of Woodbine again with 3 grade 1 races, including the Woodbine Mile. So you will not want to miss that. But guys, if you're new around here, you haven't subscribed yet and you're coming back on the regular, why not? You're already coming back. Go down below. Please hit the big red subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. And please, while you're down there, hit the like button, as that pushes the show out in the YouTube algorithm to a bunch of other horse racing fans that might be watching other shows on YouTube. This will pump this show out to them. So we greatly appreciate that. If you're more of an audio listener and while you're working out, driving, whatever may be the case, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is where we post every single one of not only episodes of Bettin N Boozin, but every single episode that is uploaded to the HHH Racing Podcast channel will be uploaded to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over on those platforms. They rate the HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks, guys. Look, Howard and the guys, they do it every single week for 2 tracks every single Saturday. Usually could be Sunday, whatever the big days are. It will most likely be both Churchill and Woodbine this Saturday. So if you're looking for price play, spot plays, full ABC grids, which, mind you, they gave out a $1,000 Pick5 last week. If you're not subscribed, you're missing out, as it only costs you $4 a weekend for 2 tracks full of coverage. Comes out to $15.99 a month, as that's the way Patreon charges it. Again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Go over there and get your power picks. If you haven't yet, you are missing out. So very affordable, very profitable. Again, run by the guys on the flagship show, Howard, Pete, and Paul. They do an amazing job. And then for if you want to see previous editions of the power picks or anything about us, where to contact us, any other questions, go to hhhracingpodcast.com, which is created by one of the flagship show hosts, Pete Visco. So guys, again, anything you want to know or you want to see previous editions of the power picks before you buy, hhhracingpodcast.com. Again, we're not going to sugarcoat it here. We're not going to waste your time. We're going to go right into it. And I'm going to bring on my 2 amazing co-hosts for this week, as now it's been bumped up to 3 with Noah Maher joining us full time every single Wednesday here. So more Noah content is always what the people want. So bring him on now, along with, from The Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman, and of course, aforementioned Noah Maher. Boys, what's going on?
Good to be here.
What's going on, Charlie?
I was hoping we can get the full crew at some point, but Pat, I mean, I will say the only reason I'll make an exception, for those of you who don't know, he went because he's a Braves fan to go watch the game, and I just got a notification just as the show started that they won to clinch the division. So you know what? At least he went for a good cause, and he needed something to cheer him up because my God, were his Giants bad? I mean, they were bad, the worst ever. It looked like an FCS school playing Alabama or Ohio State or Michigan. It was awful. So hope he's enjoying that. But yeah, welcome to the show, Noah. Good to have you full time. I know everybody watching is happy too.
And Not to mention, oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I played Daniel Jones in fantasy this week, and I ended up
that's nice.
1 point. So
Wow.
it was. They call it free money, but yeah, needless to say, I don't know. I might be playing Daniel Jones again this week, considering that they're playing the Cardinals. But we'll see as it gets to it, boys. But I see a bunch of comments in the chat. Main focus. We're going to go over a bunch of your comments as well. Thanks so much for joining the show very early on and going over all the stuff about maidens as you always do. We will use a bunch of that information again. Thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Michael Lawson is here. Churchill needs to step it up, so hope they have plans. Trust me, this day of racing is very, very good, and there's lots of good horses, and there's lots of different ways you can go on this card. So this one will be interesting. And I was going to say, Jim, you're supposed to not be here. Again, he says Wednesday obligation has been delayed 2 weeks. Love you to have you, Jim. Greatly appreciated. Maiden Focus says congrats on Copper Missile. Greatly appreciated, man. Not to mention Shards, one of our other 2-year-olds, won. I think about 3 or 4 days later at Colonial, going away by 5 lengths. So the babies are picking it up here, as they say, right? And if they continue to be as good just in time as 2 of the things we're targeting could possibly be coming up soon. So you want to be on the lookout for that. But Jim Pilar says, congrats, Noah. Well deserved. It's going to be a lot of Noah love in the chat. Rob N says, chop on. He's another Braves fan in the chat. I will not comment on the way my baseball team is playing, as we'll just leave it at that. Simon O'Neill is here, of course. He says, well deserved, Noah. What's going on, my friend from across the pond? Thanks so much for joining the show. Richard Avalar is here. That is sorry, G-Men. Boys are the favorite by ESPN to win it all. I mean, there's a lot. The Chiefs didn't look good. The Bengals looked awful.
Jim just killed us.
There's a lot of different Hey, dude.
Jim, I have them too in all my leagues if it makes you feel better. But if you draft a strong enough team, you'll win anyway. I went 3-1 and had them in all 3 of those leagues that I wanted. So you know what? You just got to have a good team. Wait, I thought was Jim a Chargers or Bills fan? Now I don't remember.
The Bills fan. He's a Bills fan.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was saying, somebody we have or in the show is a Chargers fan, and they killed me this weekend. I had sizable wagers on the Chargers, and they destroyed me this weekend. So I'm very upset with the Chargers.
I lost one of my parlays because I usually what I end up doing is I place my game parlays, and then I'll play one game that I'm interested in on the side. And Trevor Lawrence, I think he had 243 passing yards. Yeah, I needed 250 for like a 15-1 parlay. Oh, it was brutal. It's just I had a parlay every leg hit except for Aaron Rodgers, and FanDuel wasn't doing refunds, so that's why everybody saw me on Twitter raging. I had every other leg. To be fair, I mean, really, you place the bet. The guy, if he plays the game, that's the way of sports betting, bro.
This thing surfaced that it was like when Anthony Davis played 8 minutes and then was ruled out with an injury. They called it a bad
yeah, but that's the thing is they shouldn't. They just shouldn't. They should just rule it out across the room.
That's all I do want to apologize, everyone. All my bets hit except for Tulane. Now I will, to back myself, I took Tulane when their starting quarterback was supposed to play, and then he got ruled out right before kickoff. And I will say, as a man who sticks to like my actual bets, I always do bet the picks I give you out for football. I bet every single one except for Tulane. Once I found out the quarterback was out, I canceled it. But I'm happy for anyone who cashed on my college football best bets, which I'll give more this week. They all did hit besides that one.
Yep, besides the one I needed for my parlay again. But it's okay, Charlie. Don't worry about it.
I didn't know the quarterback was going to
It's fine, man. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. Mike Lawson, I do agree with you. Track management does need to be better. Hopefully it does. Although, you know what they did to my beautiful track, so we'll see about that. Main focus, Shard went sideways. He did run sideways as he was looking at the crowd the whole time, but he also powered away. So
he was just saying hi to his friends. He knew he could win.
Yeah, style. Yeah, just get to go say hi to the queen for a sec. All right, but anyway, we're going to get right to it, guys. Now, I said we're not going to waste your time, and we just sat here wasting your time. But either way, the Pick 5 starts in race 7 at Churchill Downs on Saturday, but race number 6 is also a stakes race, which I'm going to go over very quickly, and it also looks very straightforward. I didn't ask the guys to do this one, and I just did it because I handicapped the whole card. I know Charlie did as well, but I didn't tell him to look at this race specifically. It's a field of 6 for the $300,000 open mind stakes going 6 furlongs on the dirt with a very heavy favorite in Wicked Halo at 3-5. And I'm not going to bring up the PPs, but let me just tell you, Wicked Halo looks very strong in this field. Uguri is okay, but doesn't have the figures to match up to a horse like Wicked Halo, who looks to be towards the front end and going 6 furlongs at Churchill. having the rail, having the front end is definitely where you would want to be, especially when there's some horses that will want to get to the lead. Some fillies will, but Wicked Halo just seems much faster than all of them. And if she can clear the inside Uguri and go to the lead, Wicked Halo looks to be much the best in this race, although we'll see how it shakes down on Saturday. But Wicked Halo is one I'd be definitely interested in playing doubles in and around Wicked Halo. But now to the late pick 5, where we are starting our show tonight, race number 7, as I bring back up Equibase. It starts with a very, very nice race in the Pocahontas Stakes, grade 3 for two-year-old fillies, going 1 mile on the dirt. Of course, at Churchill, it is the 1-turn mile. Draws a field of 9. The morning line favorite is the number 7, You Almost Had Me, for Gaffleone, Brad Cox. Second choice is Vivi's Dream, the well-meant filly, for Kenny McPeak and BJ Hernandez. And the third choice is the number 9, Hot Beach, for Flavian Pratt and Brian Lynch. And as I bring up our picks right now, 2 of us are going with the number 9, Hot Beach, but Noah going with You Almost Had Me, the morning line favorite for Brad Cox, who looks to be the speed in this race, Noah.
Yeah, the first race that I become official, I stick with the chalk, so that's pretty cool, you know.
Fit right in.
Yeah, I went with You Almost Had Me. Brad Cox and Gaffleone have teamed up before. I mean, she won going 4.5 in that weird shoot at Keeneland, and then Brad Cox actually put her against the boys in the Kentucky Juvenile, going 5, and she romped there.
Yeah.
At 20 cents to the dollar. And then she got a little bit of a break and went into the debutante. Maybe she needed the race, and the trip was definitely not ideal. I mean, she stumbled at the start, and then she made like a middle move, but she was kind of pulling, and it seemed like Giroux kind of didn't know what to do. Maybe he was a little unfamiliar with the horse. But I just feel like she's second off the layoff. She'll probably be the horse to beat, and I think she's most talented.
Yeah, and I was back and forth between who I'm putting on top and who I'm not. There's 3 very well-met fillies in this race to me, that being Vivi's Dream, You Almost Had Me, and the number 9, Hot Beach. I just don't know distance with this horse, although in the last race she broke extremely badly. This horse wants to be up front, broke to the back of the pack and was still running on late, which could show you the tenacity that this filly does have. Ran behind Hot Beach and Ripperton in this race, but You Almost Had Me could definitely be very talented and could easily have the numbers to win this race. So Noah, I don't disagree with you by any means. Obviously, I have the horse in second on the screen. Charlie, you're going with the number 9, Hot Beach, as am I. The first race at Ellis, going 5, just looked like she was grinding, just wanted a little more distance. She got that extra distance in the debutante at Ellis, beating a horse that we talked about the last horse we talked about, You Almost Had Me. And I don't think that distance will hurt this horse out of a Medagliadoro mare, and I'll talk about why I like this horse, but feel free to expound on why she is your top pick.
Yeah, I mean, Hot Beach, she's been working forwardly. As you kind of mentioned, you can also see in the notes because, as the bossman advised us, and I think it was a smart move since, as we'll go on in this car, there's a lot of, inexperienced younger horses in these races. And I tend to watch replays anyway, but more specifically when there's less races to look at. Obviously the horse went off as a major favorite on debut, but as it mentions, bumped in the start, as you kind of mentioned, just didn't get, I guess, the cleanest trip. And then also, as you mentioned, was kind of just battling in late and just couldn't get by the eventual winner. And as you mentioned, looked like maybe added distance could help. Obviously, in the second race back, the added distance did make a difference. And what I kind of like is I see multiple horses in this race that not necessarily have to go, but likely will go. I mean, there are a few that probably will have to go. So I just kind of see You Almost Had Me in a bit of contested pace. I think Hot Beach can sit right behind them and sit a nice stalking trip and then blow by late. I think the added distance, if anything, actually could help this horse and be a benefit and kind of hurt these other horses that want speed. And when I watched the replay when this horse beat You Almost Had Me, now I know the horse had You Almost Had Me had a stumbled start, but still, as the race got into the deep stretch, it didn't look like You Almost Had Me was close enough as the race got deeper and deeper to where it was like, wow, if this horse didn't have a bad break, maybe the horse would have won. For me, what I saw was, wow, as the distance kept growing, Hot Beach had more and more in the tank, and You Almost Had Me, granted, had to use more, I guess, energy early than planned because of the bad start, but just doesn't necessarily seem like a horse that wants or needs the extra distance. I still think because of the class, you almost had Meal be right in this race. I think it's a 2-horse race. I just think with the distance and the pace setup, it's more meant for Hot Beach, and I'll also take the slightly extra value. I don't know if you'll get it, but if you do, I mean, it's nice to have the extra value.
Well, it absolutely is. And I agree with you, Charlie. I like that Hot Beach is tactical but doesn't need the lead, especially from that outside post. She'll be able to slot in really well. And if they do go fast up front, I'm definitely looking to Hot Beach to be the horse that's going to sit right behind and get first jump, which is what I liked about her last time. And obviously, there's two very good horses that Hot Beach is have to. Scalding, for those of you that remember, a graded stakes winner, a double grade 3 winner for Shug McGahee last year, winning the Challenger Stakes at Tampa, and then winning the Ben Ali at Keeneland last year, going away, very good, and beating a very nice horse, as we all know, in Cody's Wish, beating Dynamic One, Proxy. Scalding was a very, very nice horse last year, and Hot and Sultry is a very nice filly for Norm Cassie, who ended up winning the American Beauty Stakes at Oaklawn, then going to the Azeri and Apple Blossom, and was only 4 lengths and 3 lengths behind Clairiere. So 2 very nice horses that came out of the dam. Hot Water now coming to Hot Beach, looking to follow that same path as her 2 siblings. I'm very interested in Hot Beach on top. And the last horse we'll talk about, Noah, actually, I am the only one that has VV's Dream in here, which is extremely interesting. VV's Dream, this last race behind Brightwork, as we all know, for those of you that don't know, Brightwork came back to win the spin away over Ways and Means, who looks to be a very nice filly for Chad Brown. Brightwork flatters this form so much. Couldn't get past her, but was coming on late. I think the extra distance will actually really help VV's Dream, not to mention being out of a Tappet mare. VV's Dream is extremely interesting underneath. And again, another horse that can be tactical, but doesn't need the lead, which I think could come in very handy here for these 2-year-olds, especially with You Almost Had Me, most likely only being on the front end, and some other horses to her inside that are also go, 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 go types. But Noah, I'll let you touch on anything else you want to touch on real quick, and then we'll move on with the one Empire Island.
Yeah, I'll touch on Empire Island. Empire Island, Norm Cassie has been on fire. He is hotter than anyone right now. I mean, the way he's winning is just crazy. And you see this filly won down on the rail last time at Saratoga at 6, which is definitely not easy. Now she's at a mile. She ran that bullet work on September 10th, which is very intriguing. The question mark for me was just where she kind of fits in terms of pace. Like you guys said, There's going to be some horses that go. So I'm going to be interested to see where she kind of sits on the stretch out.
I agree. And, that type of race, even though it was a hot pace, working very forwardly for Norm Cassie, getting a 72 can easily improve off of that. And like you said, Noah, Norm Cassie is not one to be taken lightly right now. And the only thing I don't like necessarily is that she drew the rail, but can always overcome that, especially with the trip she looks to get in this race. The one thing I'll touch on real quick is the boss jumped in. He said, don't sleep on the Pledger here, which I'm assuming he's talking about Corb, with Rafael Bejarano up, which is not necessarily someone you see ride for Pletcher all that often. Ran very well last time, but debuted at 7, gets an extra furlong here, which Howard thinks she should relish. And based on the running line, could definitely easily take that step forward to the mile, while some of these horses are running at 5 and 6, not necessarily knowing how they're going to take to the distance. But Corb could be one to relish that extra distance. Howard, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Howard says while Hot Beach is live, he didn't like that she was hanging on the wrong lead last time out, which could be definitely one. Obviously, she could just be a little green. It could take a step forward for Brian Lynch, but that is one thing to definitely keep in mind. Thanks again, Howard. Appreciate it. I'm going 9.76. Charlie's going 9.73. Noah's going 7.91. Guys, moving over to race number 8. It is a very nice allowance going 1 mile on the turf. And as I switch over the Equibase right now, draws a full field of 12 with 3 MTOs to their outside, who obviously are very live if rain comes to Kentucky, which it doesn't look like it will. The morning line favorite is a very soft one the number 7 Haystack, Flavian Pratt for Beckman, who is a switch over from Chad Brown. Haystack was previously trained by Chad Brown, now switching over to Beckman Whitworth. So that is one to keep in mind. Second choice is number 3, Musical Score for Giroux and Cox. And the third choice is number 9, Empirical View for Leparoux and Jimmy, Arlington legend Jimmy DeVito. But I'm switching over the picks right now. And we, surprisingly, guys, we are all going with the number 3 in this race, Musical Score for Giroux and Cox. Noah, you went first last time. Charlie, you were up first this time, my friend. What did you like most about Musical Score?
Yeah, I'm honestly very surprised that we're all on the same pick. For me, this race and the last race, simply because obviously the last race is all first-time starters. These were the 2 races that for me are wide open. If I were playing a pick 5, these would be this race and the last are definitely the 2 I'd be doing spread races on. For Musical Score, I honestly just like the lack of experience. I like the fact that some of these other horses who we'll touch on later, like, the 7 and for me and Noah, the 5, have a lot of race experience and have kind of just been consistent. Whereas I like what Musical Score, the lack of experience, kind of shows that this horse has plenty of potential to keep taking steps forward. As you mentioned, she's trained by Brad Cox. Florent Giroux takes the ride again and had a very solid third-place effort last time. For me, the thing I really like is for the real contenders, to me, a lot of them are going to really sit pretty far back on the pace. Whereas out of the only realistic contenders in my eyes, the farthest one up is Musical Score by far. And, something we kind of touch on in these kind of races that, look, it's 127,000 allowance. It's not a weak race. But, for the races where, compared to this card, this is one of the weaker races. Sometimes these horses, and you can see with the figures, aren't really eye-catching, don't really blow by fields. So I feel like for me, if that's the case, I'd like to have the one that has the most potential and the one that has the first jump on whoever's going to be on the front. And that's going to be Musical Score. Horse is working decently as well. You always have to give a Brad Cox horse a solid look. And so ultimately, that's how I landed on Musical Score, and kind of thought the horse would open as the favorite, but not surprised at 4-1, still right around favoritism.
There was, I watched that last replay, guys, and obviously we can't show it as Churchill doesn't allow replays to be shown on DRF, but that last race didn't necessarily strike me as very good, the last replay, but she kind of got held up a little bit, and once she got room, she never really accelerated. I think just having the tactical speed with a little bit more pace in front of her could definitely be to her liking, which she should get in this race. Giroux will be aggressive, most likely. Galileo Mare, American Pharaoh, we all know how good his progeny is on the turf. I'd be very interested to see where Musical Score is after the break. And if she's somewhere again in that 3rd to 4th position, I think she has a massive shot come Saturday. But we all have the number 7 Haystack in 2nd. I have her in 3rd, but she's definitely interesting. Obviously, coming over from the Chad Brown to the Beckman barn. The only thing is, Noah, I'll let you touch on it. Maybe you saw this. Beckman is 1 for 12 off of the trainer switch, and coming over from Chad Brown, that's definitely no, easy matter by it.
Yeah, you can see the 0 for 11 down at the bottom left. Brown to Beckman, I would say is definitely a downgrade. But I would say an upgrade with Pratt. I'm a big fan of Pratt. He's a California guy. I would say the only knock I have with this horse, why I have her in 2nd, would be, other than that win at Keeneland, she seems to kind of disappoint at a low price. So you just have to pay attention to the board, and if she's a decent price, then I feel like you could back her.
That's the problem that I have with Haystack is this is one of those horses that we always highlight, that it's almost like we've seen what she can do. It's a lot of just mid-70s over and over. And if Chad can't take her to the next level, I'm not sure. This is obviously no disrespect to Beckman at all, but a horse coming over from the Chad Brown barn where he couldn't unlock her full potential, maybe a new scenery is what she needs. But Haystack is definitely going to be a low price in this field, and I'm not sure that's one I'm willing to take when there's a lot of other horses with more upside, at least in my opinion. Charlie, feel free to touch on anything we talked on about the 3 of the 7, and then you have the number 5 and 3rd, which you and Noah are actually exactly the same in your top 3 in this race.
Yeah, so with the 7, honestly, just had to include the horse simply from a consistency standpoint. The horse is just consistently at mid. Consistently is running in those mid 70s. Is always pretty much always in the money. I mean, you talk like 4 for 7 for the career. So I just had to throw Haystack in somewhere. This is a horse I would not get anywhere near touching for a win bet. You're not going to get much value because, I mean, I know the horse is switching away from Chad Brown, but you look, the horse has been ridden by Irad, Joel, Tyler, now gets Flavian Pratt. So simply from the class of the jockeys, the horse is going to take good money. I don't think this horse will go off his favorite because I think a lot of people will see what we're seeing with the just not getting the job done, liking to finish in the money, not really showing improvement. I think this horse kind of just is a mid 70 kind of horse. But I feel like the horse is a pretty good lock, though. Definitely the most consistent horse from a resume standpoint in this field. So I think this horse is certainly the closest lock you can find to finishing somewhere in the money. And then the 5 is just interesting to me because this horse was pretty far off the pace running up against the 3 musical score when I watched the replay and closed in nicely. The only concern I had, which is kind of what you touched on, and why I have Always at Ease behind musical score, is Always at Ease was just kind of closing and then just didn't really show any sort of late kick, like closed up to where musical score was, but then didn't do anything. But as you mentioned with musical score, the reason I see more, potential and hope is, as you kind of touched on, if you watch in the replay, musical score didn't really get a clean trip, got held up, didn't really get the clean air to be able to find either, go faster and be on the lead or maybe set a different type of stalking trip, kind of just got caught up in there. And I think that sort of hampered the race. Whereas 5 got a clean trip. It's just that Always at Ease, it's odd to me that time form says 94 early speed, because the whole issue I saw was the horse just didn't have enough early speed to get towards the front, didn't have a bad break or anything, just had to sit off there. But again, simply for a value play, I think the horse in this field is certainly good enough to finish somewhere in the money. And I'm guessing, Noah, if you want to add on, I'm guessing you kind of saw the same thing.
Yeah, I just had the idea that if the horse only lost 2 ahead from musical score finished 3rd and she finished 4th, and musical score is going to be probably 5-2, 3-1. You could definitely back her at double-digit odds for sure.
Well, that's the thing, right? If musical score is going to be 3-1, and Always at Ease is going to be 9-10-1, and they only lost 2 ahead to musical score last time. Which price would you rather have? Always at Ease for me is one of those horses I always talk about where, she seems like the clunk up variety where if there's a hot pace, that's where she really comes alive. But if there's just kind of, not necessarily a walking pace, but she's kind of, it's that mid-level pace. She clunks up for, 4th or 3rd, but maybe not for the win end unless, like I said, there's just an absolute speed duel up front. As you can see by her running line, when she was running at Golden Gate, these red figures are what, designate hot paces. And she was able to finally finish up one by one in the quarter, breaking her maiden, and then only losing by a nose in the debutante over at Golden Gate. Then comes over, obviously running better numbers, but just kind of running that 6. And although she is coming, she didn't end up getting in the money. So that's just my thing with Always at Ease. You're going to need a hot pace if you like this one on top, but underneath, she is definitely interesting to me. But a few guys I want to real quick, guys. I want to highlight a few comments real quick. Cool Kev in the chat. Thanks so much, man, for joining the show. I saw that your comment to Howard that you're new, but you are right. And Pratt hasn't hit the board too much in Kentucky. And the difference is he kind of takes, when Irad's not there, strike one. Pratt's taking that money that Irad would, in a sense. He's just always bet down because it's the name recognition. And the fact that he has been a little bit colder in Kentucky is definitely something to keep in mind. Especially if you like other horses that may not have Pratt on top. Cool, Kev. And like I said, thanks so much for checking out the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. And then, of course, Howard brings up a good point that about the Woodbine Mile tomorrow, how there's only 6 horses, and the purses at Kentucky Downs are just ridiculous. Obviously, an allowance race running for $170,000, when it technically would be a much easier spot than shipping all the way up to Woodbine for the Woodbine Mile, especially for these Kentucky horses. I think Howard's definitely hit the nail on the head there, where why you see so big fields at Kentucky Downs, since it's a short ship as opposed to a harder race, although it would be grade 1 status if you won up at Woodbine Mile. But guys, everyone in the chat, and Chris Mack, I see you, a bunch of your comments in there again. Thanks so much for doing the show to you, man. And Stephen Scott, thanks for validating my opinion on Always at Ease, given obviously credits to the 2 boys below me. But the last one I have is Grace Darling, Brian Lynch. This is another one of those that there's a hot pace. She's going to get up. If there's not, she's coming off a decent amount of layoff, was obviously well meant for Brian Lynch as she went to the Florida Oaks and was bet down, half decently to 9-1, but just did no running. This race at Gulfstream here going 7.5, she got an absolutely dream trip. By the way, she rode the rail the whole time with Gaffleon and Lynch off a long layoff, working forwardly. I like her to get in the money, not necessarily on the win end, but again, another high singles, low double digits price. Gray Starling would definitely be interesting to me underneath. I'm going 3-4-7. Charlie's going 3-7-5, and Noah's also going 3-7-5. But boys, we're going to switch over to race number 9, and that is the feature on the day. It is the Iroquois Stakes for 2-year-old males going 1 mile on the dirt. And of course, as I said before, it is a 1-turn mile, draws a field of 9 with a pretty heavy, and I'm going to assume a pretty heavy morning line favorite come race day, the number 8, Risk It for Gaffleon and Asmussen. And guys, since we have good viewership right now, everybody's favorite game, how many people do you think took the heavy morning line favorite in this race? As always, there's always one of us that goes with the heavy morning line favorite, Risk It. But how many people do you think have Risk It on top? I'm going to let the chat decide. Either it's 1, 2, or 3. How many people do you think went with Risk It on top? And I'll give the chat a little bit of time to answer, and then we'll go into the race, of course. But let's see as we go through. Richard says 1. Chris Mack says 2. Maiden Focus says no Risk It, no biscuit. I love that. Jim Pilar says 2. Charles B says none. Howard says 1. Maiden Focus says 0. Simon O'Neill says 2. Cool Kev, the new guy on the block. How about that for the man? Every single one of us is going with Risk It on top. And he will be most likely a pretty heavy morning line favorite, as we all saw what he did at Saratoga, breaking his maiden. But Noah, you're going to be on the chopping block first here, my friend. Yeah, he just looks very good on paper, but it's going to be he's going to have to definitely run well. Of course he is, but he's going to have to continue to improve to be able to win this race as well.
Yeah, I don't see any way that he's 2-1. I think he'll probably be less than even money, to be honest. But similar to the Norm Cassie horse in the first race, he broke from the inside and debut and won, going 6 furlongs. I remember hearing he was kind of a buzz horse around Twitter and some other social media. But yeah, I think that work on September 4 just kind of solidifies that this horse is ready. This horse is improving. This horse is talented enough to pretty much put away this field. I didn't really see anybody that could really contend. So you'll see later in my pick 5. It's nothing creative, but I've got him singled.
They're definitely, and that's definitely, obviously, if he runs just as well, even though it was very easy, a very easy lead that he got. Huntball, a horse that ran behind him, who's the half to Cody's Wish, for those of you that remember, ran a very nice race, even though he broke slow in defeat. Risk It just seems very well meant. Obviously, Steve could have ran him back at Saratoga, although it would have been a little bit quick. I think Steve always had this, the Iroquois in mind. Ships from Saratoga, where he worked a bullet last weekend. And I'm laughing at Jim. God damn it. But Risk It just seems to be the best of the bunch. And to your point, Noah, I still think there are other horses that can contend. The number 9 Patriot Spirit, which I can't show the replay, although that's one that I would really love to show. I will show Risk It. Risk It's replay first. Charlie, I'll let you touch on a little bit about Risk It as the stretch drive is going for him, but then I'll let you talk on your second pick, which is the number 6.
Yeah, so for this race, because I remembered it when I saw this horse, I was like, why is this horse so familiar? It's for those of you who have, subscribed to what Kyle talked about at the beginning of the show. We did power picks, and we exclusively did them for Saratoga, and I covered that day of racing. And the reason I recognized this race was I tried to get creative, and that the 3 horse you see in second, and then the 6 horse back there, Active Mutiny. What actually happened was when I first went through the program and was making my picks, I actually had Risk It as my top pick, and I downgraded the horse all the way to my 3rd choice below Active Mutiny and Hunt Ball, because I have like a rule I've been taught in handicapping, and a lot of the time it can be a good rule to use, but can also hurt you, which is when a horse is a first-time starter and they're on the rail, you tend to avoid them, because when they're on the rail, they get nervous. They don't have the horses in between them. It can mess up their start. It can mess up their races, and there's been time and time again where I've seen it happen, and it does happen a lot. However, if a horse is good enough, they can not only deal with it, but go on to win convincingly like Risk It did. And then next thing I know, I see Risk It beat the other two horses that I had. And I'm like, well, this is why I shouldn't have downgraded the rail position all the way that much. But still was very impressive in this horse. I wasn't surprised at all. Ran against, in my opinion, when I was looking at the works, I remember from this race, some horses on paper that looked very impressive and had a lot of potential heading into this race. I just think Risk It is working well, is well meant for this race. I think any effort like last time is strong enough to win. It just went up against a field better than any other horse. But as you touched on, I have the 9 in second, who you have in third, and then the 3, who I'm curious to see what you say, because I also have the 3 in and around there. I think Patriot Spirit's very interesting. It's a little tough because it is Colonial Downs. Don't really know what to make of it. Not a bad track, but it's not Saratoga. But what I will say that I was impressed with is going 7 furlongs, which is longer than most of these horses have. I was curious when I watched the replay to see, when this horse got to the lead, was there still enough in the tank? You know what I mean? Like when a horse gets the lead, it could sometimes just be the horse gets away because the rest of the field is just gas and this horse is just crawling across. But no, Patriot Spirit still had plenty in the tank, and they were setting fast. I mean, you look, they went 22-5 and then 44-9, so they were going quick. And this horse still had plenty in the tank. So I think Patriot Spirit is certainly a threat. And then the 3, I believe that's the Pletcher horse. Is
yes,
that right?
I believe
Union
so.
Roll?
Yeah.
What interested me about this horse was just this horse was sitting off the pace on a nice stalking trip and flew by, and was the only contender that I see that doesn't need to be on the lead. So I think Union Rule is very interesting. The figure isn't great. I get it. So the horse certainly needs a big step up. But the one thing I like is if there is any sort of hot pace, maybe the 8-9 just go in a big speed duel and gas out. The 3 will absolutely pick up the pieces and has the potential to win this race.
Yeah, absolutely does. And Rendon really never, he asked for sure, but I mean, in that race, got a slow number, but did end up rolling by. Probably didn't beat much, as it is Monmouth in the summer. So there's not too much, maybe not too much to read into that, but I saw it exactly the way you did, Charlie. If there's one horse that will pick up the pieces, if they do go up and end up going fast up front, it is the 3, at least in my opinion. With the number 9, Patriot Spirit, of course, I can't show the replay, but this is a replay you'd want to watch. I get it's Colonial Downs, but this horse was never asked at all in that race and ended up winning by 6, like legitimately stone hands from Castadon in that race.
It was so weird. I was watching. That's what I was going to say.
By everybody.
Let him go. Just let him do his thing. It was nuts.
So the Patriot Spirit could end up being really good, but obviously the number could tell. But we're gonna have to see how he matches up against this field and Risk It. Howard, to your point, it is taken that although a slow break, and I would agree with you that it's really either you have to spread pretty wide in this race or you're singling Risk It, depending on who you trust. But spreading might be the way I would honestly go. If Risk It doesn't break from that outside gate, especially, it's going to be hard for him to get up and win this race, at least in my opinion. Although usually the mile at Churchill, you want to be forwardly placed. So that's one thing I think that Risk It has going for him. And if the 5, who also has a lot of speed, breaks, Risk It can most likely just sit off, and Patriot Spirit's going to take back based on his run last time out. The other question is the distance, but being a gun runner, going a little bit of a mile with a forwardly placed, generally forwardly placed favoring layout, I think Risk It definitely. If I don't think you, at least if you have to have Risk It on there, who's going to be a heavy morning line favorite. But if you trust other horses in this race, spreading could definitely be the way to go. Noah, I'll let you finish out the conversation. You have the number 6, Seize the Gray, in second, and the number 4, Edified, in third, who neither of us have anywhere. So I'm interested to see why you like both of these horses.
Yeah, I was similar to Charlie. I was trying to find somebody that I thought could close, and it was Seize the Gray. He was less than 5-1 in his debut. And then in that second start had Jamie Torres on and won on the lead. But then last time, I don't know what to make of Dwayne Lucas trying to throw this horse on the turf. Obviously that was taken off, and then he was the favorite. But he had kind of a sneaky bad trip. He steadied a couple times. One was pretty bad going around the turn, and then had to swerve 8 wide.
Yeah,
but he passed horses and galloped out well. He's out of Arrogate, so I think the distance should help. I just feel like he's kind of versatile. just depending on what happens. You know, with 2-year-olds, on paper, it's not always what it seems like it's going to be pace-wise.
I mean, that's exactly right. And then for Seize the Gray, it's almost, you question where he's going to be. Obviously, he ran his best race up front, but these last 2 races, the first race, you can kind of, he's just trying to figure out some stuff. But then last race, he just he got steady, but it wasn't steadied until, basically the quarter pole. But he was all the way in the back by then. Just never really had any speed out of the gate in the Skidmore, which could be just to the competition that he ran against. But that a little bit alarms me that he ran his best race up front, which makes me think, even though Dornoch and Global Perspective are 2 very nice, or shaping up to be 2 very nice horses, I just don't know where this horse necessarily wants to be. And Dwayne's bringing him back, not quickly, but within a month after trying to throw him on the turf. I agree with you. It's a little weird. And then real quick, finish up with Edified and we'll move on.
Yeah, Edified is the other Asmussen. We like to talk about the other a lot. I just thought it was another horse that could maybe pass some horses. He seemed like he closed a little bit in his debut to slow pace. And then last time, obviously something did not go right. 4-1 in the Saratoga Special. So the public obviously thought he was live, but I think he's just got more to offer than that last race.
Yeah. And look, that's exactly what you want to try and find someone that, at least underneath for me, if that the pace does melt down between the 2 most obvious, you want to try and find someone sneaky. Charlie and I didn't go too sneaky underneath, but the number 6, Seize the Gray, and the number 4, Edified, could definitely be nice prices for you, Noah. So hopefully you get those underneath. I'm going 839. Charlie's going 893. Noah's going 864. Guys, moving into the penultimate leg of the late pick 5 at Saturday at Churchill. It is the Locust Grove Stakes, the grade 3 for fillies and mares, 3 years old and up, for $400,000, going 2 turns, 1 mile and 16th on the dirt. This draws a full field of 11 in this race, with the morning line favorite being the very classy, the number 4, Search Results for Gaff Leon and Chad Brown. The second choice is Leda Vida for Vincent Cheminade and Ignacio Correas, Nacho Correas. And the third choice is shared between the number 7, Amore, and the number 2, Pauline's Pearl. Switching over the picks right now, guys. We all have different horses in this race, but we're all very similar. So we'll go pretty quick talking about our top picks. And then, Charlie, I'll let you talk about yours, who I have in third, Noah has in second, but neither of us have on top. Like I said, we're all very similar in a way, but we're all different as well. Charlie, you have the floor here talking about Search Results, who, of course, is the most classy filly of them all.
I mean, yeah, you look from a competition standpoint, just every single race is a graded stakes race, right? And I mean, I understand last time out was a grade 3, but before that, every single the last 4 races or so were grade 1s. The figures are as consistent as you'll find. Picks up Tyler Gaffleone, who has been riding very well lately, and I see as, in my opinion, arguably the jockey to have. I think honestly with, Irad not here, and even honestly with Irad here, with how good Tyler's doing, granted, it's mainly been because he's been benefiting from the fact that he's just sort of the master at Kentucky Downs, and that's where the big races has been. But yeah, getting Chad Brown, who's obviously arguably the hottest trainer out there. This horse is working very forwardly, doesn't really run a bad race. I mean, obviously, other than that 79 figure that you see, every single figure is pretty much high 90s into the low hundreds. I just think this horse is the class of the field. I think the horse can certainly bounce back. I understand that Search Results lost to the 3 who I have in second and you have on top. Yeah, I just trust the horse to bounce back. I think if you're looking for consistency, that you won't find anything better than Search Results. I like the fact that Search Results has good early speed, but also plenty of strong speed late. Out of all the real contenders, to me, will get the first jump into the first chance. And we've seen plenty of races before at any type of track, where when you have the real contenders, sometimes it really just is whoever gets that first chance to get by those speedy long shots that set the tone. A lot of time they end up winning it. So I'm just going to back the class, the consistency, and again, the fact that this horse will get the first jump on them all.
Yeah. And Noah, I know we talked about this before the show. Search Results she is very, very game and very, very classy, but she doesn't end up, almost like she likes to win, but when she gets at least definitely pressure with her, she doesn't necessarily take to the pressure all that well, does dig in for maybe an in the money spot, but it comes to the fact that Search Results, it's a little bit hard for her to win, although she has been facing, you can look through the running line yourself, but you have this horse in second and obviously I'll let you talk about Amore, who you have on top, but I didn't like search results too much in here. No,
Yeah,
you didn't either.
Charlie's definitely right about the class, and she's definitely the class of the field. If you want to go back to the races this year, I mean, she ran 2 really good races in the La Troyenne and the Ogden Phillips. Yeah, exactly what you said with the company that she was facing. But I just think last time at 4-5 in a weak grade 3, I thought at Monmouth, wasn't she supposed to get it done? I mean,
Yep.
After that, she just kind of gives me weird vibes. I just can't really trust her.
I completely agree with you. And although the figure still came back pretty heavy at a 96, that drop from the Ogden Phipps down to Monmouth almost seems like Chad's opportunity to kind of get her a win, necessarily get her confidence back. And the fact that she didn't get it done there with, not a whole lot of pressure. I mean, they went that half mile in 47-3. Like, I mean, that's not fast for these types of animals. And the fact that she still didn't get it done, even though she dug in for third and didn't let she separated herself from the 4th position, but losing that type of race where she was pretty close at the top of the stretch, that doesn't seem I don't see her going in the right direction. Although, like you said and Charlie said, search results is definitely the class of the field. Real quick, Noah, go ahead and talk about Amore, who you have as your top pick, and Charlie and I have second.
I went with a bit of a price, and I think with Amore, I like the fact that Pratt goes here instead of search results. Of course, I'm a big Pratt guy. But switching when she went into the Brad Cox barn, she was on fire. She won 3 races in a row and went back to the form we saw earlier in her career. And then in the La Troyenne, she drew the 10 post in the shortest 2-turn race that you can have at Churchill. Not that she had like a super wide trip, but definitely going into the stretch, she was pushed out to the 9 path and still ran a pretty good race. And then last time, I kind of don't know what to do when I see a 3-horse field. I kind of tend to scratch those out.
Not to mention a DQ and a 3-horse field.
Yeah.
By the way,
you don't see that too often. But I just, I don't really like to look at that a lot. She was 40 cents to the dollar, so obviously she was expected to do well. I just feel like if Brad has her ready to go, she's going to fire her best effort.
I like Amore a lot in this spot. I just like the fact that those 2 races, one at Oaklawn, one at Santa Anita, which is actually very interesting moves for Brad Cox. Oaklawn is not necessary, but taking her out to Santa Anita is actually a very interesting move. I like that she has the tactical ability, and if the pace does die in front of her, she will get first run. And I think Amore is definitely interesting from a pace perspective in a race like this, hopefully at a price of 5-1. I went with the number 3, Leda Vita. And based numbers alone, these last 2 races, she seemed to finally click. She has had a little bit of extra distance in that Thistledown race. Now coming over to Monmouth, where she ran second to Shotgun Hottie. She did the thing that I like. She had a very bad start, which I can show the replay of. She ended up giving the field a few lengths, which could be, you're looking at the number 5 right here in the middle. She goes down to her knees and then ends up popping up, but was pretty far back. A little bit farther back than she wants to be. I think she has a little bit of tactical speed, although she likes to sit a little bit back. She went to her knees there and ends up giving the field about a length and a half, I would say. Obviously, you see search results, who's the number 4 here. But I don't think she necessarily gets a bad trip after that. But, of course, you can always say when the horse loses by, when she's finally coming right now and just lingering on the wrong lead here. She's coming, and just doesn't make it. You can always argue about that start, but I just think she's progressing really well and looks to set a really nice trip in a spot like this. I'm very, very interested in Leda Vita to run another low 100 buyer as she did at Thistledown and the Lady Jacqueline over very nice horses in Interstate Daydream and 63 Caliber. Leda Vita is going to be my top pick, and as you'll see later, I like her a little more than just my top pick, but I went the number 3, of course, Leda Vita on top. Charlie, I'll let you finish up here. You have the number 2, Pauline's Pearl, or anyone else that you want to talk about before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know the figures aren't anything crazy, but Pauline's Pearl likes to be in the money. I mean, you see 14 out of 19 races has been in the money, has, beaten some of the strong horses. I mean, beat Hidden Connection, beat Amore, who you have on, or Noah has on top, and you have second. So it's beaten a lot of these horses, and I'm a little surprised at 5-1, to be honest. I thought there'd be a little more value That was kind of the angle I was going for. Is I just assumed that it was probably going to be 3, 4, and 3 is the top 2, and 7 and 3rd. I thought those were going to be the 3 horses taking heavy money, and I didn't want to go all chalk, knowing that to me, I think it's a 2-horse race between the 3 and 4. So I was like, you know what? Why not throw in the 2 at a price? I mean, I still think you will. I think you will get more than 5 to 1, to be honest. I think a lot of the money is going to pour in on 4, 3, and 7. But yeah, just a horse that, kind of just runs its race. Never really, I guess, has anything eye-catching, but somehow always, despite the figures not looking great, beats and competes with some of the best horses in this field. So I just thought Pauline's Pro was interesting here.
Yeah, obviously she's always running in good company, and it's almost like with Pauline's Pro, it's almost like she runs half of her races like she should, and the other half she kind of runs duds. I just don't know what to do with her in a race where I prefer other horses that are going to come from her position, as in the number 7 and the number 3 in this race, both Leda Vida and Amore. Pauline's Pro is definitely one that can win this race, although she looks a little bit light on figures, which I'm assuming why she's 5 to 1 in a spot like this. But she's definitely a win candidate. Is she the most likely winner? In my opinion, no. But can she win? Absolutely. I'm going 3-7-4. Charlie's going 4-3-2, and Noah's going 7-4-3. Steven Scott, I'm going to address your question right now, and obviously you guys can feel that if you guys feel the need to touch on it as well, you guys can. He says, can you guys touch on why Irad and Jose did so poorly at the Kentucky Downs meet? Tyler was on fire. There's just, for me, it's always the matter of when a question comes up about Kentucky Downs, it always comes down to me that it's Kentucky Downs. And, I'm not saying Irad or Jose doesn't know how to ride at Kentucky Downs. That's not at all what I'm saying. But Tyler Gaffalione has always had a knack for riding extremely well in Kentucky Downs. It almost seems like you need to know when to push the button. And obviously, with that massively long stretch, you have to have your horses in a good position. Obviously, Irad and Jose could match up with anybody, if not better than anybody, on an oval track. I just don't think that type of layout plays well to the suits of Jose and Irad. Again, not saying they can't ride there, because of course they can, and they generally get the better horses as well as Tyler. But being in Kentucky where Tyler runs his best, I just think Tyler knows when to push the button in a track like Kentucky Downs. And again, not necessarily saying that Irad doesn't know when, but there are jockeys that could be more suited to a course like Kentucky Downs. I hope that kind of answers your question. And if you have any more follow-up questions, please put them in the chat. Guys, last race here. We're moving on. What's up?
Before we go on to the next race,
yeah.
I hate to give credit to the boss, but I'm pretty sure Le Davida was a Power Pick selection on Haskell Day. So you got to give him some credit.
I always you got to give the boss credit when the credit is due. And did you see that comment? Where is that comment?
No, I just
he's got a good memory.
He's good. Yeah, he's got a better memory than I do. That's for damn sure.
It doesn't happen often, so you remember the big ones.
That's for damn sure. But I blame the ADD for that one. That's what I'm blaming it on. Of course, the last race is a maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies. Of course, what else would it be for on Iroquois Day? Full field of 12 with a pretty heavy morning line favorite in a race like this. Number 10, first-time starter for Chad Brown, Regulatory Risk. And the second choice coming up all the way on the rail, the 5 to 1, the number 1, Intricate for Gaffalione and Walsh. And there's 3 horses that share an 8 to 1 otherwise, but it's a pretty heavy morning line favorite to a lot of other middling prices. And as I switch over the picks right now, Chalk Eating Weasel himself, Charlie's the only man going with the number 10, Regulatory Risk on top. Noah and I both have her in second. But Charlie, the floor is yours, my friend. Why are you right, and why are you going to prove us wrong with the number 10, Regulatory Risk?
Yeah, so real quick, I do just want to address something to answer the question from earlier, too, because I know you said if we had a little thing to say. So first off to Richard, because I saw he point out Tyler Gaffalione just had his birthday, so happy birthday to Tyler Gaffalione, my favorite jockey. Now, on the answering the question note, I also think a big part of it, I mean, he has way more experience than the other 2 the 2 Ortiz brothers at Kentucky Downs. B, he rides a lot with Walsh, who tends to do decent in the big races at Kentucky Downs. They have that strong connection at every track, as we'll see when we touch on in this race. I believe he's riding for Walsh on the one horse. And then also, I just think, quite frankly, it's just the versatility. I mean, you see with Irad and Jose, don't get me wrong, they're incredibly talented, but they tend to ride heavily in New York. Sometimes they'll go down to Florida, and obviously eventually they'll go down to Kentucky as well, but they really like to stay at one track and be consistent. Whereas Tyler Gaffalione, you'll see him ride against them. You'll see him ride against him in New York, and then all of a sudden he's in Florida for a little bit, or he'll go to Kentucky, he'll go to Ellis Park or Churchill, or maybe you'll see him in Oakland. So I just think that's a big thing for him, is he tends to be a lot more of a versatile jockey in terms of where he's willing to ride, and naturally from getting that experience and being called to go to all these different tracks for their big races, and you'll see plenty of times where he's just the only big name jockey at times there. He doesn't just only ride where everyone else is. I think it's just that experience and again, just that versatility and being used to riding everywhere. I don't think it's necessarily out of any bias because I like him that he's better than these guys. I just think if you tend to be able to adapt a lot and be in a bunch of different environments versus sticking to the ones you're used to, you tend to perform better. And now going into this race, to be honest, this kind of goes back to Risk It. Intricate was my top pick. I love my boy Tyler G and Brandon Walsh together. I think the horse is working beautifully, but I can't put the rail horse on top as a first-time starter. I just can't risk it.
Yep.
I know these are the best of the best, but I'm just not going to. So I went with Regulatory Risk, and I'll tell you why. Not just because it's Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt, but also I'm a little surprised you didn't take the 10. I'll tell you why. Is because this is not a long race, but it's not a 5-furlong sprint, so it still is longer for first-time starters, and it is Omaha Beach. And I'm a little surprised, Kyle, you didn't have the 10 because you and I love Omaha Beach.
Yep.
I mean, every time that we do a first-time starters race, I swear every time we do, you and I have an Omaha Beach horse towards the top, and we both always say it's an Omaha Beach horse. We both kind of look at each other like, yep, that's why we like it, and they always perform.
Beach is their progenies. First time, you said 33 runners come out first time. He's won 8 of them. That's 24%. And for a first-time stallion line, I mean, that's pretty damn good, which is why we always have Omaha Beaches on top.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. And I feel like every time that we have an Omaha Beach horse anywhere in the top 3, we always regret that we didn't put the horse on top because the horse ends up winning. That even goes back to the very first race when we have Hot Beach, the 9 on top. That's another Omaha Beach horse. So I just feel like these Omaha Beach horses continue to impress and do a great job. It's Chad Brown. And honestly, again, I feel like the one horse being on the railing gave me a little of an excuse to go away from the horse. And I feel like anytime we see an Omaha Beach horse, they perform, and then I regret not putting that horse on top. So got to go Regulatory Risk. And the horse is also working well.
And Howard took the words right out of my mouth, so people are going to say I'm copying him, but I swear to God, I'm not. The fact that this horse has been working and staying at Churchill for Chad makes me think that he was always waiting for Regulatory Risk to run at Churchill, and obviously that she's been working as well as she has. I do like that, as Howard points out. I really like the fact that Chad has this one at Churchill and not New York. Matters significantly. I'm thinking he thinks this could be a Derby horse next year, which of course could be the point. Or the Oaks, Howard, which I'm assuming is what you're talking about. Although obviously she can run against the boys, but you would assume it would be an Oaks horse, being that she's a filly. But Omaha Beaches are obviously always not to be taken lightly first time out. Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt, Klarovich working well at Churchill. I mean, what more do you need? And there it is. He said, sorry, Oaks horse. But cheers. Yep. See that there. Hey, I'll take that. Noah. Cheers to everyone out there. We'll take that as a misgender from the boss. You don't get those too often, so we'll take it. But I'm going over to number 1, Intricate, who, as Charlie pointed out, has been working.
Love this horse.
Lights out at Churchill Downs. Brendan Walsh has been pointing her to this spot on Iroquois Day. Obviously, first runner for the Dam, but as I go to Gun Runner, you all know how good he is with 2-year-old first-time starters, with 117 winning at 19%. Charlie does point out a very good point that he is on the rail, not to mention Gun Runner is also winning 21% out of 535 starters at dirt sprints. But I just think Tyler Gaffalione can easily pilot this horse, either a dead send to the lead or a pocket trip or something like that, to where Intricate could run well from the rail. Although, Charlie, your point is very taken. If this was kind of a shoot race on the rail for these 2-year-olds, I think I would be against this horse if it was coming out of the chute. But being that there's a pretty decent run up to the first turn without any type of layout change, I'm very interested in the number 1, Intricate. And obviously, you guys all are as well, having Charlie having the horse in second and Noah having her in third. But Noah going against the grain here, and a horse that I almost put in third, but I ended up putting Clear Voice in
Oh, my
third.
boy Wayne Catalano. I feel
Aldora,
bad.
Arlington legend Wayne Catalano, Arlington legend Jareth Loveberry, Arlington legend duo of Noah. What did you like most about Aldora?
Yeah, I went with the 5. I didn't want to eat chalk like Adam Schefter Jr. above me.
That's a good one. I'm going to use that one.
Isn't he a Michigan man? Oh, hell no. I don't
Yeah,
want to
see, that's what I'm talking about.
Man. No.
Dark side.
But with the 5, like you said about Wayne Catalano, it just seems like he's one of the better with 2-year-olds and those first-time starters out of Gun Runner. I actually had an interesting thing that I wanted to bring up with the Chad horse because right around this time, this just seems like the weird season to kind of get a horse going. I mean, Chad Brown could have definitely debuted her at Churchill, but maybe this is just the right time. And like Howard said, he thinks that maybe this is just an Oaks horse. It's something to talk about because obviously she could be talented just later on. But you think maybe if he wanted to run her like in this year's Breeders' Cup, he probably would have started her a little earlier, maybe at Saratoga. But yeah, back to the Derby point, he's just probably figured that this is the right time to get her going.
I mean, yeah, and you could see if I show all works, he's only had her at Churchill Downs. So he's always had her in mind to run on this track, and maybe he just wants to keep her there. And the Oaks could definitely be a possibility, but Chad is if this horse wins by 6, Chad's no stranger to taking this horse just straight into the juvenile fillies. Of course, could run one in October as well, but he wouldn't be any stranger to doing that, as we all saw with the horse, kind of like, maybe randomized would be one to bring to mind. But the last horse I'm going to talk about real quick, Charlie, you have the horse in third as well. The Boss points are out. Sneaky one is the 4. Really nice precocious breeding. Don't underestimate Cherie DeVoe, as this horse has been working lights out at Keeneland. Heidi Marie, as you can go. Soldier Boy was a half to Vegas Magic, who was a grade 2 winner at Del Mar last year. So this is obviously not one to be taken lightly either. Out of Cantharos, who wins 15% with his 2-year-old first-time starters. So the number 4 is definitely not one to be taken lightly either, at a nice price of 10-1 and some very fast works. I'm going 1-10-4. Charlie's going 10-1-4. Noah's going 5-10-1. Guys, we're going to go through the best bets here pretty quickly, as obviously we have some football to talk about tonight. But Charlie, your best bets are going first. Race 3, the win on number 10, Life Advice, which obviously is a race we didn't talk about. But real quickly, and then Exacta 10-2, and then race 9, a double 8-4. Charlie, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, so I mean, why not go back in myself of what I've been talking about? Brandon Walsh with Tyler Gaffalione is an unreal duo. This horse, I believe, is opening at 4-1. I don't know if that's fair, or I think it's second choice to a horse that's run terribly but has experience. Maybe that's why the horse is on top. Sold for $300,000 or $295,000, first time starter. Normally wouldn't do that for a best bet, but I mean, the horse is just working bullet after bullet after bullet. 248 flats, then a 47-4. Again, Tyler Gaffalione, who's been on fire with Brandon Walsh. The two of them have been killing it together. I love that horse at a price. And then put it over Plain Champagne. I mean, a great name, but on a more serious note, just had a few bullet works as well. Not a cheap horse. Looks decent. I like the value as well. I mean, my main play is certainly the 10 Life Advice. I love the horse in this spot, but wanted to throw in another horse underneath to, just add some additional value. And then I'm doing for my daily double, going with the 8 into the 4. As you kind of mentioned, you either have to stand on a horse or do a spread. And while I don't think, it's any sort of guarantee risk it wins, as we talked about, there's plenty of other contenders. I just think this horse ran against a much better field than any other horse in this race by a lot. As with the minute flat work, clearly looks pointed and ready to go in this spot. Again, always going to trust my boy Tyler G. And I just think Risk It could honestly set a nice trip, or go set the pace and run the race that he wants and go on to win. And then going into search results, I know there's some other strong competition and the horse hasn't gotten the job done, but I feel like we've talked about this plenty of times. No, look, this is an incredible horse, so it's not like they have to give up on the horse entirely, but certainly do believe that, if there is can this horse win a graded stake still, this has to be the race for search results. So I'm trusting that in my stone cold double 8 into 4.
Hey, I love a nice ice cold double, and the fact of the matter of, you're bringing in Risk It, and you like search results a lot, which could pay upwards of 5-6-1 when those horses could both be favorites. So good luck on your best bets. I always say the double is the best bet in horse racing. But Noah, your best bets, race 9, you're going Exacta 8/6. And then race 9, you're also going with a double, risk it into Amore. Noah, to talk about your best bets.
Yeah, race 9, I think risk it is probably the most likely winner in the sequence. And to try to get some value, I'm going to go with Seize the Gray underneath. Probably be close to double digit, I would assume. And if she clunks up, that would probably pay pretty good. And then race 9, I'll stick with risk it, and then go with Amore because that's probably my favorite win bet of the day. She'll probably have a pretty good amount of value with those contenders with search results and Late Avida. So hopefully I can get that double there.
Hey, absolutely. Like I said, and one of the best, or the best betting advice I've ever been given by a friend of the podcast. Of course, you all know him, Matt Miller. If your top pick is going to win, you better hit it hard. And obviously, Noah, you have your pick 5 here that you're also singling. Risk it in as well.
Yeah, like Charlie said a little earlier, I thought the first 2 races were a little tougher. With this ticket, it just seems like this card is a little more logical with some more favorites that are most likely to win. So just a little cheap ticket that you can maybe press up a couple of times and maybe hit for a smaller payout than what we're used to seeing this summer. But if you hit it multiple times, then it might be a pretty good value.
I mean, absolutely. And $24 is a very cheap ticket. Noah, good luck with your best bets on Saturday. I'm going race number 6, as I talked about. I'm going to try and pair with Wicked Halo, who looks very tough in her race, which is the race we just right before the pick 5 we talked about, into the number 9 Hot Beach and the number 6 VV's Dream. You almost had me as definitely another win contender, and you could definitely spread between those 3, Dutching to pay the exact payout. So I could go like 20, 15, 10 or something like that if the numbers work out that way, to pay $150 or something like that. Hopefully you can try and spread them out, but those 3 are definitely the most likely winners in race number 7. And I'm going to try and pair with Wicked Halo to get a little bit of value. In race number 10, of course, I talked about how much I liked Late Avida in this spot, just sitting a very nice trip and hopefully at a price of 7-2. I think lowest I'd go would probably be 3-1 on Late Avida. If she gets bet below that, I wouldn't be willing to take that type of value, especially on a horse who has won 1 in her last 7, but looks to sit the nice trip in this race. And hopefully we can get a nice price on her. But guys, that'll end the horse racing segment for episode 39 of Bettin N Boozin, going over the Iroquois races and the late pick 5 at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Again, thanks so much to everybody. We had a great audience for the entire time. So thank you guys so much for joining in, but don't go anywhere, as we're going to cover the 3 best matchups, the 3 most marquee matchups of NFL week 2 coming up right now as I switch over the banners real quick. And Charlie, as we all know, this is your time to shine, my friend. We're going over Baltimore at Cincinnati, with Cincinnati's -3, Kansas City's -3.5 at Jacksonville, and then Miami's -3 at New England. And I didn't put your best bets, but of course you can talk about those as you go through. The first game is Baltimore-Cincinnati, and I'm pulling it up right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm going to put this on screen as well. Cincinnati played like shit. They played.
They were awful.
And, you can obviously say that, Joe Burrow didn't necessarily play his best, and maybe he's not 100% yet from that injury that he suffered in training camp. But they looked horrible. And from a Ravens team who didn't necessarily look the best either, Lamar Jackson, he threw for 160, 170 and threw a pick. He didn't look his best at either. Two teams with very high hopes at the beginning of the year didn't play their best year, but hopefully they both bounce back and this will be a really good matchup.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't touch the Bengals-Browns game because I thought, to me personally, it was too obvious to take the Browns. We're talking about a home game. They get Deshaun Watson for their first full season. The weather is terrible out. It's raining. What does that suit towards? Teams with good defenses, specifically D-line, because that's a game that relies on the trenches, and teams with a strong run game, and nobody has a more consistent run game than the Browns with Nick Chubb, if you really break it down. So I just think that game was perfect for them. However, the Bengals tend to always start slow, so it didn't surprise me. If you look back last year, I remember because they were 0-2, and I thought they were going to fall to 0-3 to my Saints, and then the Saints found a way to do what the Saints do best, which is find a way to, when you have basically a game sealed at home, give up a big return on special teams and then give up 2 quick touchdowns in a matter of minutes and blow the game. But the Bengals always start slow. I'm not surprised at all. I like Baltimore here, though. Their defense I know it was the Texans, but still, their defense looks great. Lamar did not have a good game, and they still were able to get the job done. Obviously, the concern has to be, what will the Ravens run game look like, being that they're a team that likes to run the football, and now they don't have J.K. Dobbins. However, the guy, even though I love him because he's an OSU guy, he's never on the field. He's always hurt. So, and here's what's interesting to me. When I had written this down originally, when I last looked, the Ravens were +3.5, and it's now moved to +3. The reason I like the Ravens is I think this pick is begging you to take the Bengals, and I'll tell you why. I get it. The Ravens won a good game against a bad Texans team. The Bengals looked terrible and got killed. So naturally you would assume, so everybody's going to ride with the Ravens. But actually, because everybody's obsessed with the Bengals and Joe Burrow, and they're the trendy pick, and everywhere I looked, all these casuals are saying the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. I think everybody's going to be thinking in their head the same thing with the Chiefs game later, which I'll admit I fall under, is surely the Bengals can't fall to 0-2, right? They can't afford to. They're at home. So to me, I feel like everybody's going to be betting the Bengals, which when I last looked, more of the public is on the Bengals, and yet the spread is still moving towards the Ravens. I've talked about this plenty of times on the show, how I like to look to see where sharps are at. And currently, I know it's still early, but early on, sharps are leading towards the Ravens. They're on my side. I'm not going to go against where I'm leaning as well. So I'm going to trust the Ravens, whose defense looked better, because the Bengals' defense also didn't look great. I think the Bengals are going to take some time to get going and just did not impress me at all. So my pick for this game is going to be the Ravens. Originally +3.5. I'll still take them at +3.
Obviously, as you know, Charlie, I'm one to buy points. I think buying the points in this type of race would definitely be viable, but I don't know if I really. Obviously, you could see by the predictor here, 51.5% are going with the Bengals, which your point is definitely taken, Charlie, to the point where a lot of people are obsessed with the Bengals and they're like, there's no way they could play that bad again, right? And if Joe Burrow isn't 100% and he's going to stay out there, I just don't know how good the Bengals. Obviously, the Ravens have a good defense, but their secondary has been lacking in the past few years. So the fact that Joe Burrow could get a little bit better matchup here, I think the Bengals could bounce back for sure now being at home. But they both looked not good last week. Really, that's really it is. No, I know you're a pretty decent football fan yourself, and obviously I don't know if you have as big of a opinion in this game as Charlie does, but it just seems like the Bengals are begging for a comeback. But I think to Charlie's point as well, a lot of people might be backing the Bengals in this spot.
Yeah, Charlie's got a good point. Definitely with J.K. Dobbins out, I feel like Lamar Jackson's kind of going to be the X factor in this game. He's going to have to run on second and third down to try to get those conversions and keep drives going. Because I feel like if you keep that Baltimore defense on the field, the Bengals are going to figure something out. They got to get something together at some point. So I just feel like if Lamar Jackson kind of steps up his game from what he should last game, they got definitely a good chance, especially being underdogs, getting 3 points.
I mean, and that's the thing, right? If Lamar Jackson steps up, this team is definitely going to be. Obviously, Zay Flowers looked really good last week. He caught half of Lamar Jackson's passing yards, but Lamar's always been the key to this team, and the fact that he didn't really step up. He did step up at all last week. He got away with it playing a team like the Texans, but now playing a team like the Bengals looks to obviously be the better team, although they didn't look like it last week. On paper, they look to be the better team, so a lot better team than the Texans. So they definitely have to. Both teams have to step up on Sunday. Charlie's going Ravens +3 or -3. They're +3. Yeah, so +3.5 would be very interesting to me for the Ravens, but God, this is one you could this is a wishy-washy game for me. I definitely don't have a good opinion one way or another, as both teams looked pretty bad last weekend. I'd be more inclined, honestly, to take the Ravens plus, but the Cincinnati -2.5 line would also be like, I'm so wishy-washy, and I know it's not good, obviously not great betting advice.
The half point does make a difference.
It does make a massive difference.
Could make the difference. If it's a field goal game, you want to be on the right side of that.
I'll go against Charlie for the hell of it.
I loved him at +3.5.
Yeah, I'll go against Charlie for the hell of it. I'll go -2.5 to the Bengals.
No, it's not for the hell of it. It's that way our show, at least one of us is right.
No, I know. A lot. I know. I'm just fucking with you. But the next game, obviously, is the other very good game. The Chiefs at the Jaguars. The Chiefs losing to the Detroit Lions at home last week and now travel to Jacksonville. Although I believe Travis Kelce is questionable. Yeah, according to ESPN on the injury report, he is listed as questionable. as of right now. We'll see if he ends up playing. If he does play, that obviously is a big boost into the Chiefs' territory. Although they didn't have the best defense last week, as they never really do have the best secondary in the league. But Charlie, I'll go to you first again. Chiefs look to have a bounce back game, but I mean that connection between Lawrence and Ridley last week was electric.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I had the Jaguars, and I won't lie. After they had that fumble recovery touchdown they gave up, and it looked like the cover was dead, for them to re-rally with a touchdown and then a pick and score again, it was an all-time cover. So I love the Jags, and I'm loyal to them for that. They made me a lot of money. However, I do think the Chiefs bounce back here, whether they have Kelce or not. I think the reality is Kelce was always a game time decision in that game. They didn't really know if he was going to play. They thought he was going to. I think they didn't really have a game plan ready. You know, you had a bunch of uncharacteristic drops from Kadarius Toney. I think the Lions are a better team than the Jaguars, specifically defensively, and I think that's a big key in this game. Ultimately, is I think the Chiefs now get an easier defense to play up against. I mean, we saw in the Jaguars-Colts game that the Colts, even though they ultimately lost by a decent amount, they did struggle at times to stop a Colts offense that was literally brand new without Jonathan Taylor figuring a bunch of stuff out. I think this Chiefs offense is significantly better. I think they will bounce back. I don't have them with me, but I saw a bunch of different stats about how dominant and how good the Chiefs have been playing. I think they win by like double digits on average coming off of a loss. I just think this is a game where it's like, look, they have their reset. They've already planned to be without Kelce at this point. I think from the research I'm doing, he said on his podcast that he has with his brother that he's been progressing well, but that he's still taking it day by day, so we don't know. But I'm going to take the Chiefs -3.5 here back. I'm not worried about the point at all. I think this is a game where they have a statement and win. And quite honestly, I just don't think the Jaguars are ready for them yet. I think the Jaguars are a very serious threat in the playoffs and will win their division. But I just don't think they're ready. I think this is a Jaguars team that still is young, needs time to grow. I think they got a lot of hype because of that huge playoff win with the comeback last year. And I think they need time to develop. Whereas I think the Chiefs understand, like, look, we're ready. We're going to turn up. We're playing an easier defense. We're not going to have those uncharacteristic drops. And I think they're going to go in and beat Jacksonville.
Uncharacteristic drops by one man whose name will not be
disclosed.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. So go after him, not me. But like I said, the Chiefs should have a little bit easier time with this defense, but without Travis Kelce being in the mix, it's still going to be hard for them to get anything done. As Travis Kelce, as we saw last week, is such a massive component to that offense. But hopefully also for fantasy owners alike, hopefully Kelce can come back pretty quickly. And Richard, your thing, they should all go to grass because that Rodgers injury is
a lot of
disgusting. That's bad. Like, that's a really bad injury. 4 plays in. And Aaron Rodgers is not one, to be out a lot with injuries through his career. So for him to go out in 4 plays, Jets fans have suffered enough, and that's just another blow to him. But Noah, win is a win, and Zach Wilson, the mom's man himself, could hopefully step up and lead that team to the playoffs. But Noah, I'll let you get the final thing, and then we'll move on real quick to Dolphins Patriots. But anything you want to touch on with Chiefs Jaguars before we move on?
It's definitely important to note that Chris Jones finalized his deal.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if he'll be playing this week. Will he? Because I feel like statistically the Chiefs are not the greatest run defense. So I feel like ETN is going to get the rock a lot, especially after they saw what Calvin Ridley did last week. So I feel like with the Chiefs game plan, they're going to kind of be all over that with doubles and help with safeties over and stuff. So I would expect ETN to have a pretty big day. But if Chris Jones can get in there in his first game and do some damage and have an impact, then they get a real good shot at winning the game.
Absolutely. I mean, Etienne's obviously, or ETN, however you say it. I'm not going to be the bearer of bad names.
No, you're right. It's ETN. You're good.
No, I said Etienne, so I was wrong. But thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that anyway. That's definitely the case. Although, the Chiefs don't necessarily have the best secondary either. Obviously, their whole thing is one on offense. So if they can't get that offense going again this week, it's going to be another rough time, especially if Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley collect like they did last week, and Etienne's running the ball at a nice, solid, 5 yards a carry. So we'll see how that goes. But the Chiefs are favored by 3.5. Jaguars plus 3.5 is definitely enticing based on how they played last week. But you buy the point for the Chiefs. I can make the argument to go Chiefs plus 3.5, but I'm definitely leaving more to the Jaguars. With the Chiefs still being a little bit hurt on the injury side. But I'm going to go to the Dolphins Patriots, guys. We're running a little bit out of time here. This is Sunday Night Football at 7:20. Both teams played really well last week. The Patriots just lost last weekend, while the Dolphins escaped away with the win as they're on the road again, this time in Foxborough. The Dolphins are favored again by, I believe, 3, right? Yeah, the Dolphins are favored by 3 with an over-under of 46.5. Simon O'Neill, my friend, says, go Fins. Charlie, or Noah, honestly, Noah, I'll let you get first crack at this one here. Obviously, Sunday Night Football in Foxborough is never the easiest to go into. The Dolphins look like they have a really good team this year.
Yeah, I think both these teams have a really, really good defense. I really like the secondary with the Dolphins. And New England, Belichick is such a defensive mind. He's always, up to the task with strategies and such. With that being said, Richard Avalar, I actually went to one of the Rams games when they were playing in the Coliseum when they went back to LA, but I haven't been in the new stadium. I wanted to check that out. But yeah, Sunday Night Football, there's probably going to be a lot of hype, and the defenses are really good, so I don't expect them to score a lot. So maybe lean toward the under. I want to see what Charlie's feeling about that.
Big man, you're up.
Yeah, no, I'm looking right now, actually, got to be responsible, looking at the weather, and I'm seeing right now it's showing Sunday is it's going to be nice weather. It's going to be sunny the whole time, a high of 79. So for me, that screams helping out the Fins. Look, their defense last week looked abysmal. They couldn't stop a parked car. The Chargers were going up and down the field, but luckily for the Dolphins, the Chargers were not only not able to stop a parked car, they somehow found a way to get run over by a parked car. I mean, their defense, their secondary was one of the worst things I've ever seen. You have J.C. Jackson on a Hail Mary right before halftime deciding to deck a dude in double coverage, giving up a field goal, which ends up winning them the game. But I'm going to wait for my rants until later. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. Now, look, I think New England has a good defense. I don't trust Mac Jones. I think the Dolphins' defense isn't as bad as they looked. I think Noah's right. They have a lot of good talent on that team. I just think when you go up against one of the most explosive offenses in the Chargers with Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen was finally back healthy, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, they just have so much talent. That everybody knew from the start. I wish I'd given that out as my pick of the week was the over in that game because you knew that game was going to be a score fest. But look, I think a big reason that people are ignoring about why New England was able to hang in so well with the Eagles was because of the weather. It was that classic rainy Foxborough slippery ball game, led to some bad Jalen Hurts turnovers, makes it more of a defensive game, which benefits New England because their defense is great and their offense is shaky at best. I think now that I checked the weather report, and at least as of now, it is showing it's going to be all sunny, so it's not going to be that New England weather to help benefit the Patriots. I'm going to trust the Dolphins here, trust Tua, trust their unreal offense. I know that the Patriots defense is much better than the Chargers, but who can guard Tyreek Hill? Even if you get lucky enough to choose to shut him down, Jalen Waddle's a freak. He's so fast. They have Raheem Mostert, who's not the healthiest guy, but right now he's still holding up, and he's a good runner and a great pass catcher too. I just think they have too many weapons. They're going to be very relieved to be going up against Mac Jones rather than Justin Herbert. And I don't even know who outside of Kendrick Bourne. I think every other Patriots receiver is Juju, whose knee apparently blew up, and I think they were taking fans to try out, so they don't have too many good receivers at this point. Few Walmart employees playing for them, so I think that'll help. And they have Zeke, I love my OSU guy, but man, he looks like he belongs in a retirement home. He looks like he ate Zeke, even though apparently he lost weight. So I don't trust that Patriots offense. I'm going to take the Fins.
Zeke hasn't looked the same in 5 years, man. We're not going to sugarcoat it, but Dolphins -3.5 or -3, especially, maybe even -2.5 if you want to buy the points, as I keep saying on this show. But -2.5 is especially interesting in this game, if not -3. Maybe -5.5. I just think you can go many different ways, but the Dolphins, in my opinion, will cover in this game on Sunday night. But Charlie, best bets is all yours, my friend. Finish off the show right now with your best bets of both college football and NFL. And then, like I said, then we'll end the show.
Yeah, so my best bet last week lost with the Saints. They should have killed him. Derek Carr had a bad red zone interception. They couldn't finish drives, and then they played conservative. And despite picking off Ryan Tannehill 3 times, and man, if you looked at that box score, you would have thought I was right that the Saints won by 50. So you know what? We're going to change it up and make a smart, unbiased move. And my best bet of the week this week is going to be the Saints once again, -3. Look, they're playing Carolina. I watched that Carolina Falcons game. That looked like 2 college football teams playing. I am so excited for the Saints this year. Their division is easy pickings. My God, are those teams bad. Look, Bryce Young.
Derek Carr looked like shit, dude.
Agreed. But look, he still had 300 yards. He got robbed of a touchdown because the refs robbed him when the catch was inbounds. And then on top of that, Chris Olave torched a defender who had a hamstring issue, and he tackled him, but they didn't call PI. Most biased commentary I've ever seen. Anyway, back to the game. Look, Bryce Young is like 4'6" on a good day. He's shorter than me. He won't be able to see over his line. That Saints defense is one of the best in the league. They're going to ravage that terrible Panthers O-line, get right through and sack them a gazillion times. He might throw 7 picks in that game. J.C. Horn is out. Who's covering Chris Olave? Who's covering Michael Thomas? Who's covering Rashid Shaheed? They're probably, once again, Walmart employees are going to be covering them. The Saints are going to feast on them in the pass game. The run game has been abysmal, I'm not going to lie, and Trevor Penning should be cut tomorrow. My God, is he a terrible alignment? But it's okay. They have enough talent naturally. I think they're going to kill the Panthers. This one, they actually might win by 50. The last one, I thought they would, and they should have. This one, they actually might win by 50. Now, and yes, folks, I won't always get biased picks, but my God, the Saints' schedule to start this season is cupcakes.
After the Saints lose again this week, then he'll stop giving biased picks.
They won. It's all right. But yeah, they're going to cover this time. My bank account needs them to. Okay, so now moving to the college football bets. Now, I didn't want to be boring and just give a spread pick, so I like to do same-game parlays. So I'm going to back 2 wagons of mine this year and then a small school. So my first pick is going to be Florida State. They were minus 25. They're now minus 26.5. I know that tells you to not take them, but I don't care. Florida State might win it all this year. They're playing Boston College, who is arguably the worst Power 5 team in the country. They barely beat Holy Cross, who I didn't know was a college, to be honest, and I'm a degenerate gambler. Barely beat them at home. So they're clearly not a good football team. I think Florida State might beat them 150-6. The over-under in that game is 47.5. I can tell you all, last week I had Florida State spread against Southern Miss, and then I also the over in that game is the same game parlay, and they beat them like 66-13. I think they might beat Boston College like 70-0. So I like the Florida State minus 26.5 with the over 47.5 same game parlay to get those boosted odds. Then Appalachian State plays East Carolina. Saw them play Michigan. You can admit it, Kyle. They could not move the football. I mean, that offense is bad. They could not move the football anywhere. Came back to play a bad Marshall team and were terrible again. So I'm going to take Appalachian State at home minus 9.5 and over 49.5. Because they always score a lot. They're famous for playing North Carolina and losing 70-68 in double overtime or whatever it was. It's always high scoring. So they're going to score enough. So that's my pick there. And then Washington, I think they're going to win the Pac-12. I think they can make the CFP. Michael Penix Jr., the guy from Indiana who transferred to Washington and became a stud. I like them minus 16.5 and then over. So 3 straight games where I'm taking the favorite spread with the over, same game parlay. Washington minus 16.5 and over 55.5. Michigan State's got a ton of drama right now since they had to fire Mel Tucker. Who knows if the allegations are real or not? I'm not going to get into that sensitive stuff. Their program's in shambles. Washington, again, is going to crush them. Their offense can score at will. I love them with the over. Those are my best bets this week.
I love it, man. And, it comes down to it. I'm fine with taking, hey, anytime Michigan State loses is a good day for me. So I'm not too worried about that. And I'm sure you can attest to that as well. There's a lot of different, there's just not very many good, not a lot of very good college football games this week. I don't think there's any.
This is for the degenerates. There are none. I looked. I wanted to cover one. There are none.
I mean, Charlie's your main guy for your degen college football bets, like, the ones you wake up at 3 a.m. for and watch. But Richard Avalar says Coach Prime again. They're obviously playing Colorado State. So obviously the Colorado Derby, they're minus 23 in that game. They might be. I mean, that's a late game. That's 9 p.m. So
that's a 10 p.m. game. Oh yeah, 9 for you. Yeah.
Yeah. In real time, it's 9 p.m. But that'll be a good game as well. Minus 23 could be good enough. I mean, and talk about a team. Charlie said Nebraska's trash. They looked pretty trash.
Look, for the games where the quarterback didn't go down, exactly what I said would happen. I said Notre Dame, even though I hate them as a wagon, they killed NC State even after that 11,000 hour delay for the weather. I thought the stadium was going to get blown over. Thank God it didn't, because I needed my bet to hit. Sam Hartman's him. And then, Nebraska, I get them out of the Big Ten, bro. With all the expense, get them out. Send them elsewhere. I don't care. Send them to, don't even put them to a Power 5. Send them to like actually, I like the American. Send them to the Sun Belt. So, no, you know what? Send them to the MAC with the MAC.
Dude, come on. No, you can't bring in the MAC. It's the MAC.
Send them to the lights, camera, MAC. Get Nebraska out of the Big Ten.
All right, we've gone way too long, guys. Again, I appreciate everyone staying on. We've had good viewership this entire time, but it's time to it's closing time, as they say. It's time down in college. It's time to go. Time to go home. But thank you guys all so much, really, from the bottom of all our hearts. Thank you guys so much for joining in for this show and every single show of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. For my co-hosts Charlie Freeman and Noah Maher, this has been your host Kyle Roscoe, and again, episode 39 of Bettin N Boozin, covering Iroquois Stakes Saturday and NFL Week 2. Good luck, everybody, on your bets, and crush those bets this Saturday and Sunday for both sports and horse racing. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.